Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, there is no doubt that this role would be haram. Such a job would be haram. Allah says in the Quran, تعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. Help and cooperate with one another. What is based on goodness, what is based on good deeds, what is good in, what is spreading justice and khair. And do not help one another in facilitating sin and transgression. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made something haram in His religion, we can't aid a person in that. It becomes a religious obligation upon the Muslim to aid in what is good and to stop what is bad. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talking about benefiting financially from what is haram. Inna Allah idha harrama shay harrama thamanu. Surely when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made something haram, He has made its price haram. And that is now talking about taking up a job where there are haram elements, where the person is actually putting it forward and making it his role to make sure that this haram thing has been facilitated. Allah says about the munafiqun, wal-munafiqun wal-munafiqat, ba'duhum min ba'd. The munafiqun, male and female, they are from one another, they support one another, they are one another. Why? يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْوَأْ مُنْكَرْ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمَعْرُوفِ. They support and they encourage one another to do what is munkar, what is sin, what is disliked, what is unjust, what is transgression, what is oppression. And they stop one another from doing the opposite. What is wajib, what is justice, what will bring about khair and blessings. But the opposite direction for the believers. وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَا بَعْدٍ. Male believers and female believers, they are supporters to one another. They are allies to one another. They are friends to one another. Why? يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. They engage and they encourage and they remind one another to do what is good, what is upright, and they forbid and they advise and they try and put a stop from their brother and their sister from falling what is munkar. Therefore, taking such a role is not halal. However, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah has something which is beautiful in this. When he's talking about jobs which involve things which are haram, or actions which are things that are haram, and he gives the example of bribery and he gives the example of other things, is that if there is a maslahah and a mafsada involved, then the person can get engaged according to the level of necessity that is present. So let's say, for example, there's a Muslim school, and this is the situation here in the West. A Muslim faith school. Ofsted come in and they say, listen, we want music to be part of the national curriculum, and we want to see evidence that you've been teaching the children music. Does it now become permissible for him to do that? The answer is that he has to look. The headmaster has to look now. If he doesn't engage with what they've told him to do, what's going to happen? They're going to shut the school down. All the children are going to end up going in state school, and there is a greater mafsada. So now he needs to say, yes, okay, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to adopt that into my syllabus and my curriculum. But what does he do then? What is necessity? Necessity now then, he needs to make it as broad as possible rather than making it narrow. So broad meaning in the sense that he needs to look at all of his options and not engage in just what they've told him to do. So now maybe he looks at nasheeds without any instruments. Maybe have some role playing to see that, that art and music and all these things are being implemented. So according to necessity, the person will then implement what the school or what the law is telling them to implement. And the only reason why he's doing that is because he knows that the mafsada is far greater. The mafsada in him not doing it or not getting involved is far greater. Let's put it as another example now. Say the role comes up as a headmaster or a vice headmaster or something like that in a school, and all the people that are running for it are probably not qualified, and you are the Muslim that is qualified, and you know that if you come in to that school, you can put down some measures which are going to be beneficial for these people, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, in their deen, in their dunya, but also maybe you can implement some things which are values from our religion, which will then hopefully help create a better environment of learning and character, etc. But now you've got an element where the school and the governing body and the government are saying, listen, you need to make sure music is there. What do you do then? Are you going to say, no, that job is completely haram? Now, you see that now. This is a very important principle that Ibn Taymiyyah has mentioned, rahimahullah, rahmatullahi alayhi. Now, people will start blaming, and the reason why I've made this so long is because this principle is so important, but people don't understand it. People will start blaming scholars, and they say, look, the mufti of such and such country is sitting with such and such ruler, and that such and such ruler is a dictator, or he is known to have killed someone, or he's a person that's implementing riba, or he is a person that is allowing music to come into his country, etc. Isn't that mufti helping him? Isn't that scholar a person who is supporting the haram that is going on in the country? He either sits next to him and tells him off and shuns himself from all of the bad that he is doing, or he doesn't get involved. That's what we think he should be doing. But that's incorrect. That's incorrect. Our Sheikh Abdul Aziz and Sheikh Hafidhahullah, he said once when somebody asked him this question, if we don't get involved, who's going to get involved? The maslaha is far greater for us to be involved, even though you might see things that you dislike. The Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy al Munkar has gone. Different things are happening in the country that people don't like. Mixing, all of these different things are happening. But does that necessarily mean that the ulama are to blame directly? No, they are there because there is a far greater maslaha for them to be continuously involved and continue to advise. So applying that principle in this role, I will say no, in origin is haram. If you can find something else which is halal, then you must do that. But if this is the only thing that is available, and you know that you've got a vested interest in what is going on in that role or in that school, or you know that if you were to go in there that you would be of a person of influence and you can bring about khair, and even though there might be haram elements in the beginning, but then you can work towards removing that eventually, then I will say, inshallah, based on this fatwa from Ibn Taymiyyah and fatwa from many of the contemporary ulama, you will find many of the ulama giving similar fatwa, and this is what we are basing our nasiha on, in that we would say that it is permissible. I would just say, though, however, make istikhara and make sure you assess with a person of knowledge all of your options, because you might feel that there is a necessity for you to take that role when there is no necessity. So applying the dawabit and the principles that we mentioned here might not necessarily be easy for everybody to do. But in principle, you're not allowed to help. However, if there is a greater good, all Muslims need to understand that sometimes you might see something which is bad, but the person of ilm who is implementing that thing might be doing it for a far greater good. And examples we can see in the surah of Surah Al-Kahf with Khadir and Musa. Musa was shocked. How can he kill an innocent person? How can he puncture the ship? How can he how can he mend down the wall when it was falling apart and they were so rude to us, etc.? The maslaha is not always there, even if a person is educated. Therefore, interaction, engagement, and learning these principles is very, very important. I'm sorry it's been lengthy. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all iman and tawfiq, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us in our dunya and in our deen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.